Good morning and welcome to our October People Hub. My name is Victoria Brown and I am the host for the People Hub community. If you've not joined us before, welcome. We have a session once a month. We have different topics that we talk about. Some may be relevant to you, some you may not feel are, so feel free to dip in and out whenever you do feel that it would be of interest to you. We do also do a little bit of networking. The idea is to try and encourage people within the People Hub to talk and share ideas and best practice. And it's in the name, it is all related to people. So we will have people here that are business owners, HR professionals, health and safety professionals, managers, anyone that has to manage people in one way or another to this session. So today we are talking about workplace health and safety, and I'm delighted to be joined by our health and safety consultant, Adam Williams. He is our health and safety consultant, and he is also a mental wellbeing first aid trainer. I think some of you have been on his course, so you will know Adam and be familiar with him already. And what we're going to talk about today is the basics of health and safety. So I just want to say well done to everybody that has joined this session. We find a lot of the time when we do put the health and safety session on, there are people that think they know it all, and there are people that just don't want to know. I think it's if I don't know and I pretend to be ignorant, then it's okay and it'll go away. Sadly, it won't. And even if you do have your health and safety outsourced or you have someone in-house managing your health and safety, I do believe in HR, or as a business owner, we do have that responsibility. And ultimately, if you are a business owner, the buck stops with you. So I'm going to hand over to Adam after the networking session. He's going to talk us through the basics and what you need in the workplace. So we'll send the slides out afterwards, so don't worry about having to take lots of notes at this point in time. And Dan is also recording the session, so that will be shared as well. So if you've got other people that you think you may find this useful, please do feel free to share. So what I am going to do now is going to let us move into a breakout room. So if you've not been before, all we do is just 5 minutes. The idea behind it is just to get to know the community, build those relationships with one another. So we're just going to move into a room, 5 minutes, and then it will just automatically bring you back into the main room, and then I'm going to hand over to Adam. So I will see you soon. Okay, so I am now going to hand over to Adam. So like I say, don't worry about making too many notes. We will send over the slides to you. So Adam, would you like to tell us all about health and safety and the basics, please?
Hi, thanks, Vic. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invite to deliver this short and sweet basics on health and safety. I'm Adam, so I'm the health and safety consultant at HBC. I've just been in a room with Stacey, and it's just been chatting about health and safety needs. So hopefully, I'll answer everything by the end of this session. You can move to the next slide, please, Dan. Okay, so I'm going to go through it step by step as to different things that you should have in place. So the first thing you need to do is prepare a health and safety policy. So the law that every business must have a policy for managing. The law says that every business must have a policy for managing health and safety. So if a business has 5 or more employees, the policy must be written down as well. And the policy and any changes that you make to it must be shared with all employees. So there's 3 different areas that should be included as part of a health and safety policy. So you've got part 1. So you should state the general policy on health and safety at work, including commitments to managing health and safety and aims. The employer or most senior person in the company should sign it and review it regularly. Then we got part 2. So you should list the names and the positions and roles of the people in the business who have specific responsibility for health and safety. And then in part 3, you should give details of the practical arrangements that are in place, showing how the company will achieve health and safety policy aims. This could include, for example, doing risk assessments or training employees and using safety signs or equipment, things like that. And the law that we're looking at for the health and safety policy, so the legal requirement is to write the policy, which is including the Health and Safety at Work Act, and the Management of Health and Safety at Work regulations explains the steps to take to manage health and safety. You move to the next slide, please, Dan. So the next thing I want to look at is managing risks and risk assessments at work. So employers are required by law to protect their employees and others from harm. Assessing risk is just one part of the overall process used to control risks in the workplace. So there's 5 steps to I can't see the 5th step on there. Never mind. Steps needed to manage risks. So risk management is a step-by-step process for controlling health and safety risks caused by hazards in the workplace. So the first step is to identify any hazards. So you should look around the workplace and think about what may cause harm, and think about how people work and how plant and equipment are used. Also think, if it's relevant to you, what chemicals and substances are used, what safe or unsafe practices currently exist, and the general state of your premises as well. We then look at assessing the risks. So once the hazards have been identified, decide how likely it is that someone could be harmed and how serious it could be. This is assessing the level of risk. So you need to decide who might be harmed and how, what has already been done to control the risks, what further action needs to be taken to control the risks, who needs to carry out the action, and when the action is needed to be completed by. Next, we look at controlling the risk. So we do this by looking what's already been done and the controls you already have in place. We need to consider things: can the hazard be eliminated altogether? If not, how can the risks be controlled so that harm is unlikely? And if further controls are needed, so additional controls, consider redesigning the job, potentially, replacing the materials, machinery, or the process, organising the work to reduce exposure to materials, machinery, or a specific type of process, identifying and implementing practical measures needed to work safely, and providing PPE, so personal protective equipment, and make sure employees wear it. And we record the findings. For a company that employs, like I previously mentioned, for a company that employs 5 or more people, they must record the significant findings. So have it written down, including the hazards, so things that may cause harm, who might be harmed and how, and what's currently being done to control the risks. And the last step, I'm not sure if you can see the step 5 on your screen, but there you need to review the controls to make sure they are working and should be reviewed if they are no longer effective, or there are changes in the workplace that could lead to new risks, such as changes to staff, a particular process, or the substance or equipment that has been used. So you should also consider a review if workers have spotted any problems or if there have been any accidents or near misses. You should update the risk assessment with any changes that have been made. So ensure if halfway, risk assessment should be updated annually. But if an accident occurs and you update your risk assessment halfway through the year, then that needs to be updated there and then and shared with employees as well. Next slide, please, Dan. The next thing I want to look at is, so you need to report accidents and illnesses. So in law, certain workplace injuries, near misses, and cases of work-related disease must be reported to the HSE. The HSE is the Health and Safety Executive. So you should keep records. So for a company that has more than 10 employees, an accident book must be kept under Social Security law. Keeping records of incidents helps to identify patterns of accidents and injuries, so you can better assess and manage risks in the workplace. So records can also be helpful when dealing with an insurance company, for instance, and make sure to protect people's personal details by storing records confidentially in a secure place. Okay, next slide, please. And the next point I want to look at is providing information, training, and supervision to your employees. So everyone who works for a company needs to know how to work safely and without risks to the health. So decide what training and information is needed. Make sure everyone has the right level of information on hazards, risks, measures, and emergency procedures. So training should include contractors and self-employed people as well. Workers must be given the clear instructions and information, as well as adequate training and supervision. So include employees with particular training needs, for example, new employees, if anyone's changing jobs potentially or taking on extra responsibilities. Young employees and health and safety reps should be involved as well. Think about how much training is needed. So for a low risk business, providing simple information or instructions is likely to be enough, for example, in an office-based environment. Make sure everyone has the right level of information. So training that we potentially look at is, things like fire safety and fire evacuations. DSE assessments should be carried out, so display screen equipment. Manual handling, potentially, if there's a lot of manual handling involved in a role. And we should also give training on how to report accidents, and where's the book located, or have you got an internal Excel or software to report your accidents. You should ask workers if the training is relevant and effective, and keep training records, which will help decide if refresher training is needed. Depending on the training that you're delivering, we suggest that you do an annual refresher of training. So the information and training should be easy to understand, and everyone working for the company should know what they are expected to do. Next slide, please, Dan. So consulting workers is a biggie for health and safety. So all employees must be consulted on health and safety aspects within the company. This can be done by listening and talking to them about health and safety and the work that they do, how the current risks are controlled, and the best ways of providing information and training. So consultation is a two-way process, allowing employees to raise concerns and influence decisions on managing health and safety. Employees are often the best people to understand risks in the workplace, because they're the ones doing, on the front line, if you will. Involving them in making decisions shows that a company takes the health and safety seriously as well. So there's a good culture within the health and safety culture within the business. A small business might choose to consult workers directly, and larger business may consult through a health and safety representative or a trade union, for instance. And an employer cannot decide who the representative will be. That's down to the workers. Next slide, please, Dan. So next, I want to look at having the right workplace facilities in place for your employees. So employers must provide welfare facilities and a working environment that's healthy and safe for everyone in the workplace. You should also include those with disabilities. So the three main things that I'm going to look at and explain are, so you've got your welfare facilities. So you should have the right number of toilets, wash basins, drinking water, and having somewhere to rest and eat meals, such as a staff room. Then we've got a healthy working environment. So you should have a clean workplace with a reasonable working temperature, good ventilation, suitable lighting, and the right amount of space and seating. Then we've got a safe workplace. So well-maintained equipment, depending on the industry that you're in, with no obstructions in floors and traffic routes, and windows that can be easily opened and cleaned. Next slide, please. We've got first aid in work. So employers must make sure employees get immediate help if taken ill or injured at work. So the law applies to every workplace and to the self-employed as well. So business must have a suitably stocked first aid kit, an appointed person or people to take charge of first aid arrangements. So an appointed person doesn't necessarily need to be trained in first aid. You would be required to carry out a first aid needs assessment first. So if you carry out that assessment and feel like, having a suitably stocked first aid kit is suitable, then that is sufficient for your company. But if you're in a more medium to high risk business, then you could get a first aid trained employee. So you should provide information for all employees telling them about first aid arrangements. So a list of the named first aiders or who that appointed person is to take charge of an incident if it was to happen in the office, warehouse, factory, whatever it may be. Next slide, please, Dan. This is one I come across quite often when going out to visit clients. So you should be displaying the health and safety poster. So if a company employs anybody, so they must either display the health and safety law poster where workers can easily read it, or provide each worker with the equivalent health and safety law leaflet. So the poster explains, or leaflet explains British health and safety laws and lists what workers and their employers should be doing in regards to health and safety. Details of any safety representatives or health and safety contacts internally and externally potentially should be added or provided to all employees. Okay, and on to the next slide, please. So appointing a competent person, so that is something that I do on behalf of a number of my clients, is act as their health and safety competent person. So they outsource that to myself and to HBC. So an employer must appoint a competent person or people to help meet health and safety legal duties. So the different types of people that can be appointed as a competent person are the employer, one or more of the workers. So you may have a large business with different departments who may need a competent person within each department potentially, or you could appoint someone from outside of the business. So a competent person should have the skills, the knowledge and experience or training to be able to recognize hazards in a business and help put sensible controls in place to protect workers and others from harm. So if you were to potentially outsource to somebody from outside of the business, if you don't have the the knowledge and the experience within a company, that is something that you could do. So if a business organization doesn't have the competence to manage health and safety in-house, help can be given by an external consultant or an advisor like myself. But it is the employer who has the overall legal duty to be responsible for managing health and safety. So the buck still stops with the employer, as that they will be the responsible person. Okay, so that is my session on basic health and safety and what you should have in place. I'd like to invite any questions, and hopefully I can answer them.
Thanks very much, Adam. So I think Dan's going to put Slido on. I just wanted to touch upon the competent person, obviously on the last slide. So does every organization, every company have to have a competent person regardless of their size and risk?
So if you've got 5 or more employees, you should have a competent person. Yeah. And
when you say competent, because I know from previous sessions that we've had, Adam, here, where you've gone into companies sometimes and completed a health and safety health check, and they've said, oh, our employer is the competent person because he's done, this sort of session. What do HSE deem to be acceptable to be a competent person?
So yeah, a competent person should have the relevant health and safety skills or the knowledge or experience to be able to recognize, potential hazards within a specific workplace. Should be trained as well, ideally. Like myself, I'm trained in NEBOSH, so I can act as competent person on behalf of all our clients, and they should be able to put specific controls in place to protect their workers and others from harm, and know what to do from a health and safety side. The amount of clients that go into and say, yeah, I've got it all under control, but I go in and ask, have you got this? Have you got that? Have you got documented risk assessments? They're like, no, I don't know how to do that. No, I don't know what should be included in a policy. And so that's when we sort of come in and help them fill in the gaps and make them fully compliant with health and safety law.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it? I know there's been a few clients, just drop my coffee, a few clients that have maybe been going for accreditation like CHARS or something like that. And that's when it's been picked up that actually they've not been able to sort of get that accreditation because the competent person they thought was the competent person actually isn't really, you know, going on a one-day course is just not, doesn't quite cut it.
Accreditations is something that I help clients with as well. So help them fill in the gaps, you know, draw up documentation that they haven't got in place to make sure that they have got it to pass their accreditation. So that's a big part of my role at the moment, especially for the employee companies within construction.
Absolutely. That was just one. I'm going to jump into the questions now. Sorry for my questions, but I think there is this question, and I thought the same actually on here, just around when you talk about risk, you know, and sort of low, high, you know, medium to high. What I think sometimes people get confused by what category they're actually in. So would you just define those categories, like sort of what sort of business would fit into those categories?
So a low business, a low risk would be something like a office-based environment. Medium would be potentially a warehouse with, you know, that you just store things in with racking, things like that. And something high risk would be like on a construction site using, you know, power tools. You know, where working at height would be high risk as well. Things like that. You know, regular manual handling, that would be another high risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're basically more risk to the employee in one way or another.
Yeah, the higher we go, you know, in risk, the more control measures we should be putting in place. So for instance, for, you know, working at height, you should have harnesses and things like that. And for manual handling, you should provide, you know, mechanical mechanisms to reduce the amount of manual handling that you need to do. Yeah.
And I know this is one of the questions on Slido around risk assessment. So you've obviously talked about the need for that risk assessment. How often should you be reviewing risk assessments?
So your risk assessment should be reviewed annually.
Okay.
Or like I think I mentioned during the slides, if there has been an accident or a near miss, or you know, a process within that risk assessment has changed, then that should be updated straight away and also shared with the relevant employees. The information should be passed on, so you should consult your employees for putting everything written down, and that should be shared with everybody.
Okay. Thank you. One of the questions here is around what is an employee's responsibility regarding employees working with display screens? And I think I wanted to expand on that a little bit around, obviously, display screens, but then also the responsibility that you have, Adam, sort of working from home now, because that is obviously a lot more prevalent than it was sort of 3 years ago.
Yeah, so home working has become part of the norm, whether you do it 5 days a week, maybe 1 day a week, or, you know, for instance, ourselves, we're in the office 4 days a week and work from home 1 day a week. So in that scenario, the DSE, so display screen assessment, should be carried out for your workstation within your office, as well as at home. So you shouldn't just do one just for the office. One should be done for the home as well. So the DSE assessment would be looking at you know, the correct chair, the correct desk, the correct screens tilted, you know, and at the correct height and things like that, and to ensure your posture is correct. Maybe you need, foot stands, things like that. We have templates for DSE assessments available. So if that is something that you're looking for, then we can provide that for you. Something else in regards to display screens that a number of my clients, when I asked them this question, do you provide eye tests for your employees? They're like, no, I didn't know about that. Some people do, some people don't, but the majority, I'd say 70–80% of employers aren't aware they should provide eye tests for their employees if they ask for one. So it's something that the employee should come to the employer and ask for, and they can't turn around and say, no, it's law that they have to provide and pay for their eye tests. And if the results of that eye test state that they need glasses specifically for the use of display screens, then they should provide and pay for a basic pair of glasses for that employee.
Yeah, that's a really interesting subject, isn't it, Adam? Because I think people don't realise that at all. But then equally, I think it's making sure that you've got the policy in place, haven't you? Because as you say, I think that it's those basic glasses and even eye tests, because you can go and spend an absolute fortune, can't you, on a nice pair of designer glasses that maybe the employer can't quite afford. So
yeah, I think it should state in your health and safety policy that is something that you provide for your employees and the process you follow, such as carrying out your DSE assessment. If that then states that you need, and that it should state in there that you provide eye tests for all employees as well. And if the outcome of the eye test is that that employee needs glasses specifically for the job that they're doing, then they should provide a basic pair. So they don't need to buy a nice set of Gucci glasses. It just needs to be a basic pair.
I think in the past, when we've had that scenario in the office, we've just paid the, it's just the difference, isn't it, really? You've made a contribution, because obviously
that's it. Yeah,
most people don't want to go Specsavers, they want to go and get the Gucci glasses, don't they?
Yeah, the Specsavers do a brilliant corporate account, so you can sign up all your employees to their corporate account and send out the vouchers through them, which is brilliant. So you don't have to go handing cash out in the office. And
yeah, no, great.
Yeah.
Okay. So another one here is around. So you talked about fire safety before.
Yeah.
And from my experience, I do find that a lot of people can be quite ignorant around this, particularly if they are in sort of shared space and all of these fantastic offices that are available in city centres. There is sometimes that just, well, that's fine because the landlord's got that covered. But what training does an employer need to provide in regards to fire safety?
So in regards to fire safety, they should provide basic information on regards to fire safety. So where the exit routes, you should go through the evacuation procedure. That the evacuation procedure should be written down and made available for all employees to view. So, for instance, if you've got a new employee on the first day, you're going through the induction procedure, fire should be part of that. You should have a designated fire marshal in place who would sort of take charge of, if the fire alarm was to go off, they would take charge of the situation and ensure the whole office or the specific area has been evacuated, and they should be, the employee should know who that fire marshal is. Regular fire drills should be carried out. So the law states one every 12 months, but to ensure you capture everyone, in case someone's off because of sickness or they're on holiday, we suggest that you do at least 2 fire drills every year.
Right.
And also, if there are any significant findings that are going to implement the employee that are found in your regular annual fire risk assessment, they should be shared with the employees as well.
I think this links nicely as well, doesn't it, to what we were talking about before around sort of the hybrids and home working now, because there's quite a lot of on the software side that I've found there's been a fire drill and they've realised that they haven't got a fire marshal, because the quota of fire marshals may be okay, but it wasn't quite enough because they're working from home on that day. So I think that's really important now, isn't it, to be conscious of, have you got enough people on the days that they're in the office versus working from home?
Yeah, I don't know if we touched on that, but the question at the top, so how many first aiders does a company need? We usually try and give the advice that you need the same amount of first aiders as you've got fire marshals.
Right, okay.
Because you need to make sure that you've got someone there all the time. In case of home working, sickness, annual leave, there should always be one of those on site, or someone to take charge of that situation.
I think it's an interesting one, first aid as well, isn't it? Because I think that does again come back to you as an employer and your view on the, the duty of care to your people. Because even if you're in a low risk organisation, I'm aware of clients that are in an office and had a heart attack, and to not know what to do in those circumstances could be whether you save someone's life or not. So it's taking that, going a bit beyond, isn't it, what the requirements from HSE is.
I think the law states that you should have one first aider for up to 50 employees.
Right.
And I had a client that literally took that on board and just trained one first aider. But what happens when that person's not available, not there? So, they should have at least 3 or 4 to ensure that it's covered at all times.
And you can do like the 1-day course, can't you?
Yeah, the 1 day basic, yeah.
Yeah, it's more people done that, and then one person maybe on the 3-day course.
Yeah, again, that comes into the low, medium, and high risk. So if you're in a high risk environment, you should have someone trained in your full 3-day first aid. But for a basic, a low risk, low to medium, then the 1-day training would be sufficient, definitely.
I don't normally, so apologies, but I am obviously going to do a little plug for 1HR here, because 1HR sponsors this peopleHUB, but we have One Safe now that launched sort of about 8 months ago. So if there is anyone on the call that would find that useful, you mentioned obviously the accident book, which for me terrifies me because it's a total GDPR breach most of the time. We obviously have One Safe, which will allow you to put your record your accidents online, near misses, and manage these sort of risk assessments as well. So that's all I'm going to say on it. But if anyone's interested in a free demo, it's really, really, really cheap to implement. But it does make that difference, doesn't it, Adam? I know you've helped.
I think it's what I've seen, clients using it to spot any trends. So if they can see that a certain employee is having the same accident over and over, or near miss, then they clearly need additional training or additional control measures to be put in place. So it's great to be able to see trends within certain organizations and to advise them what they should be doing, really.
Yeah.
To limit the chance of an accident happening.
Yeah. And it's so easy now with online products. It's so cheap to implement, isn't it? But at least you've got, because I think that's always been my fear as an employer. The buck stops with me, and that you've got to take some accountability, haven't you, for what is in place in your organization. That's one.
You can delegate the health and safety to a person internally or externally, but the buck does stop with the employer at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, we should just do a session one day just on scary stories as well, because I know you tell me a few which terrify the life out of me around when employers have been negligent and ended up behind bars. So we'll do that one day. We'll have a session on just to everyone get the popcorn to listen. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Adam. That's been really helpful. I hope that's been helpful to everyone else today. As mentioned before, we will share the recording if you want to share that with anyone else in your organisation that you think may find this useful. We will also share with you the slides, and Adam's details are on screen now. Feel free to connect if there's any questions that maybe you feel you have after this session or we haven't quite answered for you. Adam can even do a sort of a complimentary health check for you in your organisation.
Yeah, definitely.
So the next session that we've got, Sorry, Dan, missed that one. Just here is the QR code if you, we'd love you to join our community. So we also have a LinkedIn closed and Facebook closed group, which is the people that attend peopleHUB regularly. The only thing that we do ask is that they do have some responsibility for people, because we don't want it to be a sales opportunity for somebody who's going to try and sell to you. That's not the reason that we network outside of this room. It is to share best practice and to obviously grow and thrive as businesses, as managers of people. Our next session is next month. So again, it's always the second Wednesday of the month. So just bear that in mind for when you want to attend a session, always at quarter past nine, and it finishes at 10 o'clock. The next one is around employee engagement. We will reveal more information on this next week, but quite exciting session. We are going to be quite practical. Got two people speakers, a panel event, and they're going to talk to you about some of the exciting innovative things that they've done in their organization to improve employee engagement. We know how important this is to our productivity. If we've got an engaged workforce, we've got a happy workforce, we've got a productive workforce. So what we're going to do is, rather than just talk to you about the importance of it, we're actually going to bring in two people that have got real life experiences in their businesses and some of their ideas that don't necessarily have to cost you a lot of money to implement and talk through that journey. So I'm really looking forward to that session. If you'd like to attend, we've sent the link on the chat there, or you can pop on the QR code there to register, and we will follow up with you with that information. But I'm going to let you go now. Enjoy your day, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.